Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Gemma. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist and psychologist and a mindfulness for sports performance enhancement practitioner. So, as I said, welcome everyone to the adventure of mindful sports performance enhancement and well-being taster session. So, in this session, I'm just going to take you through a bit of an introduction to what mindfulness is, what mindful movement or mindful sports could be, and how it might enhance both our enjoyment of movement, perhaps even our performance of movement, and definitely also our sense of well-being and how we take care of ourselves. So, what is mindfulness? So, lots of people have various ideas about mindfulness that often come from stereotypes that perhaps mindfulness is about completely emptying your mind or being very still, sat on the floor with your legs crossed. Perhaps it's something that's very difficult, something that you can only do if you're very well trained, perhaps as a monk or something. But actually, mindfulness as we know it in the West, and as I'm talking about it here, is actually a little bit more calm than that. It's basically the awareness that emerges for us when we start to really learn how to pay attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non judgmentally to things as they are. It's our ability to watch our thoughts, our feelings and emotions and sensations that come up for us without necessarily latching onto them, without necessarily following them. So, quite often, what we do is we just respond to things as though we have no choice, as though it just kind of happens. So, if I show you on my hands here, so if you imagine one of my hands here represents a situation, perhaps getting up to go for a walk or go for a run, and it's cold and it's wet. That's the kind of situation. And on the other hand, we represent how we respond to that. So quite often it might feel like these things are fused, like we just respond to the situation. We respond to the fact that it's dark and it's cold and we perhaps don't go. Or we respond to the fact that it's dark and it's cold and we feel that familiar kind of feeling of dread of this is going to be difficult or this is going to be hard. But actually, what mindfulness can help us do is just put a bit of space here between the situation and our reaction. And it's in this space here in the middle that we have the ability to choose how we respond, which doesn't make it easy. It just gives us a little bit of a chance at being able to do that. So that's really what mindfulness is. And it is the opposite of what we call autopilot. So, autopilot being that kind of where you just go along with things, you go along with the motion without really thinking about them. So, a good example is when you walk home or drive home from somewhere and you know that you've crossed a couple of roads if you're walking or gone across a couple of roundabouts, a couple of traffic lights, but you might not actually remember much of the way home and you might not notice much about the way home because you're not totally there. So your body is, and if anything was to happen that needed you, you would be there to respond. But your mind is kind of somewhere else. Perhaps it's on the day, how things have gone. Perhaps it's on the future, how things might go. Perhaps it's just going over and over things that perhaps don't even seem like they have any value to you. My mind is very good at taking me through old song lyrics from the 90s or the early 2000s for no reason whatsoever. It's just where it goes, it's just where it takes us. So the mind is a very busy place, and we live a lot of our lives on this kind of autopilot. Mindfulness is the opposite. It's about really coming back to the present, about really coming back to what's going on for us right now. And when you start mindfulness, that might really just include coming back to the present in terms of very obvious things like the feeling of your feet on the floor, the feeling of your clothes on your body, the sounds that you can hear. But as you get better at this, it also helps you to just come back and be aware of and notice those thoughts that might be going on for you. So, some other examples, just to kind of test how much you pay attention, just see if you can notice when you've perhaps gone in somewhere. Notice what you were aware of, perhaps the color of the top of the person at the bar or the shop, perhaps noticing what hand they were wearing a watch on, or noticing something similar, or noticing what colors are around. Or when you pay attention to talking to someone that you don't know very well, that kind of small talk, quite often what we're doing is we're thinking about the next thing to say rather than really paying attention to what's being said or what's on in that moment. So there's a brief video for us to watch. Let's see if we can watch this.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
Sorry, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
Action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
So I wonder how many did you spot? This is a great example of how our attention is often pulled by what is loudest or what is right in front of us. But there is a whole world going on for us that we're perhaps not so aware of. And mindfulness can really help support us with that. And when what we find is that the things we notice are actually getting in the way of our enjoyment of movement or our sense of well-being or our ability to even get started, then we have more of a chance of being able to move through that, of being able to make the choices that we want to make. So mindfulness has some myths, as I was saying earlier. So the idea that we must be sat still. Well, if you think about this idea or this definition of mindfulness as the awareness that emerges for us when we pay attention to the present deliberately, on purpose, and without judgment, then that could be done seated. It definitely could. And that could be a really big part of your practice. But it could also be done moving. And actually, this has been done for a very, very long time. So practices like yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong are very ancient practices that all use this idea of mindful movement, of being very present and noticing and being aware of what comes up for us as we move. So sometimes people bring the idea that this is very religious and that they need to have a religious background, but the mindfulness that we're talking about here is secular. It's sort of like having all the religion removed and the science put in. It's a form of mindfulness that doesn't require a doctrine, that doesn't require you to be or believe a particular thing. So it can really be enjoyed by everybody. this idea that we need to empty the mind. So that comes up a lot, but actually, mindfulness is the opposite. It's about noticing quite how busy the mind is rather than emptying it. So, what you might find when you first start is that the mind is full of different thoughts or different things going on, different images, or there might be emotions coming up, or all kinds of different things. And you might have a sense of frustration as though you want your mind to be calm and empty. But actually, if you notice something, if you notice, hey, I was just being here with this moment cleaning my teeth and my mind took me off to tomorrow. That's mindfulness because that's you noticing, it's you coming out of autopilot back into the present moment. So the idea that people can't meditate if their mind is busy, if they worry a lot or they think a lot, it just doesn't make sense anymore when you think about mindfulness being just noticing, just becoming aware of without latching on to those thoughts or things that might be going on for you. So, the first thing when we're thinking about mindfulness is to see if we can just let go of some of those myths, some of those ideas that we might be coming from. Because actually, mindfulness, we often call it beginner's mind. It's about coming to something as though it's for the first time you've ever come to it. So, little kids, toddlers, babies, and dogs, they are natural at being mindful. They are really natural at it. And when you take a walk through the park with a dog or a tiny kid, you have to look at or sniff every single flower, every single petal. Everything is fascinating and interesting because they're not caught up in their opinion of it or what it means for them or what it might mean for the future or whether they're going to be late. They're just in that moment. So I've got a brief personal exercise for you now. So I'm going to encourage you just to take a moment for yourself. And if it feels comfortable where you are, to just close your eyes. Obviously, don't do that if you're driving or in a place where you feel vulnerable. But if you can, just close your eyes. And I just want you to imagine this scenario. So you're waking up on a bank holiday. And as you wake up, you realize that you don't feel particularly great. You had a bit of a heavy night the night before. Perhaps you had a bit too much rich food, stayed up a bit too late, and you're not feeling totally rested. As you think about this, you realize that it is the bank holiday and that you made plans to take part in a sponsored run with some friends. And you sort of think, oh, I'm going to have to get up and drag myself out of here now. So you get up, you drag yourself there, and you're on the start line, not feeling so great. And as you get ready to start, what's going on for you? What are your thoughts, your emotions? What's going on in your body? Any urges to act or behave in a certain way, to do or to not do something? Just noticing them. And then just coming back to the scenario. As the run starts off, you notice that part of the reason you're there on the start line is because your friend said, don't worry, it'll be fun, we'll just all stick together. But actually, they've maybe gotten a bit carried away with the excitement and they've kind of torn away from you. They're a bit far up the field. And you're finding yourself a bit more alone amongst the crowds. But you get on with it. You start to move, you start to jog. You notice yourself being overtaken first by people that you think perhaps look a bit fitter than you, a bit faster than you, who started behind. And then perhaps by people that normally you wouldn't think would be faster than you. As time goes on and you keep moving, you notice yourself being overtaken by a few more people. At one point, a fun runner in a big costume passes you. At another point, you notice someone with a double buggy running with the buggy overtakes you. Notice what you're thinking, feeling, what's going on for you right now. Any urges? As you come to the last K of the race, you turn a corner and notice a fairly steep hill. What's going on for you now? Thoughts, feelings, sensations, urges. Take a moment just to notice them. And I'd like you to imagine yourself reaching the finish line. I'd like you to imagine that in that last 100 meters or so, you have a bit of a second wind and you start to feel good. What's going on for you now? Thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations, urges. What's that like for you? So just keep these things in mind. If there were things that came up for you, thoughts and feelings, urges, that you think actually that gets in the way for me quite a bit, not just once in a lifetime, but actually this is something that gets in the way for me. That could be one of the things that mindfulness can support you with, is being able to observe and notice these things that are getting in the way, but without needing to latch onto them, without needing to follow an urge to stop or give up. And that way you can choose. You can choose what's right for you based on your body at that moment. And at that moment, it might actually be to stop if you're really not very well, or if it's really too much for you. But it also might not be. But quite often, because of this autopilot, we respond as though we have no choice in how to respond. It just happens. Mindfulness gives us the powers to take that step back and make that choice. So using mindfulness in movement, as I mentioned, it's a bit of an ancient practice. But what's happened in more recent years is we've started to really evaluate how mindfulness could be helpful for people who are involved in movement. Perhaps you're involved in a sport. Perhaps you just want to get started. Perhaps you just want to be able to take part in a park run without feeling a sense of dread, or go for a walk without having such a huge difficulty with getting out the door. And what we've noticed is that sustained meditation, mindfulness practice helps people to cultivate certain skills that can really help them to overcome these difficulties. So the original studies were done originally on rowers and rowing teams, and then they have been adapted for all kinds of different sports. So the original studies found particular things that could be cultivated with practice. So the ability to concentrate, the ability to be present, to be with something, the ability to let go of the urge to follow those thoughts and feelings, to let go of the need for it to be a particular way in order for you to enjoy it or be part of it. A sense of harmony and rhythm. So, as I said originally, these studies started with rowers, and there was a sense of harmony and rhythm with the movement of rowing, with the connection to the water, connection to the boat. But actually, what we find is in lots of different sports, there's this sense of harmony and rhythm. It's the connection of your feet on the floor if you're running, it's the connection that you cultivate with the ball when you play a ball sport like football or tennis. It's the feeling of you holding the golf club as though it's part of you, that sense of harmony and rhythm. It can also help you with what we call forming key associations. So we form associations with everything and we notice it mostly when it's negative. So if you've had a bad run or a bad experience, you might notice when you go back there, the mind getting in the way. It's associated this with this is going to be hard, this is going to be difficult, I don't want to. But actually, we can start to form key associations with more positive things, with that feeling of really enjoying something, really enjoying that sense of movement, really being present with it. When you put all these things together, they can really help people to become more likely to enter into flow. So, flow being that almost mythical experience that people have of being totally at one with something, to the exclusion of all else, to the exclusion of a sense of time, of really just being there and just being so absorbed with something in a pleasurable way. So the recent studies, as I said, it can suggest that you can help yourself towards getting into flow. So it's not a causal, it's not a case of if you practice mindfulness, you'll get into flow, but it can help set you up. It can set up the conditions for flow. It can help you to let go of mistakes or difficulties. It can help you with a more general sense of well-being. And there's lots of studies. It's very much an evidence-based program to use mindfulness for depression or anxiety. We know that people who practice mindfulness are less likely to relapse into things like depression. We know that people who practice mindfulness have a better time coping with injuries and the difficult ups and downs that come with anything that involves your body. You know, sometimes your body feels good, sometimes it just doesn't. Some of the studies also suggest that it might help you reduce your chance of injuries. A lot of the studies were done around footballers, noticing that footballers who practice mindfulness were less likely to get injured. We think possibly because actually they're paying more attention to their bodies, to what's going on, not overtraining, and are paying more attention to their footfall and posture. And also can really help you with your performance anxiety, with a reduction in performance anxiety, with reducing that race day nerves or that not wanting to let my team down, you know, all of those things that might also contribute to you not being your best or not being able to enjoy it. So let's get started by bringing mindfulness to movement. So what I want you to do is just stand up where you are. And we're going to take a moment just to see if you can tune in to the feeling of your feet on the floor. It might help to close your eyes if that feels possible for you in this moment. See if you can notice where some points of your foot might be lying a bit more heavily than others. Perhaps there's more pressure in those areas. Then bring your attention gently up your body. Perhaps noticing what your calves feel like in this moment. Your shins, your knees, your thighs, your core, your arms, your shoulders, your head, your neck. What we're going to do is we're just going to start moving with just a few steps. But what I want you to do is to see if you can bring this moment by moment focus into the movement with you. So slow it right down. Take that first step at maybe half the speed you would normally. And see if you can really notice how you shift your weight from one foot to the other. Notice the emptying of the weight from one foot as it raises up. Movement perhaps of your hips, your back as you take that step. Perhaps you notice your arms coming with you. And just gradually taking a few more steps, bringing mindfulness with you. You might want to play around with your steps. You might want to make them wider or longer or shorter. You might want to bring your knees up higher. You might even want to try this now with some of the exercises that you might use to warm up. Just seeing what that's like. And perhaps also just noticing any reactions you have to it. Thoughts of, what am I doing? Or this is daft. Or urges to laugh. Whatever your reaction, that's what's happening for you right now, and it's okay. And then when you're ready, just coming back. So it's a very brief intro. So there's a lot to mindfulness. There's a lot to learn. Mindfulness courses are often sort of between 4 and 8 weeks long, with home practice in between after each session. But you can also do much shorter workshops over 3 or 4 hours that really start to introduce you in a little bit more depth to using mindfulness with movement. So you can start by building on today. You can start by following Active Mindfulness on Facebook. You can follow me, Gemma, at Active Mindfulness on Instagram. Or you can go to the Active Mindfulness YouTube page, which has loads and loads of free videos, some of which are meditation practices, some of which are very short 2-3 minute intros to different parts of mindfulness, some of which are videos of me talking about some of the studies that support this, particularly with movement. So you'll find lots of great resources there. What I'd also say, if you haven't practiced mindfulness before, start with something small. So brushing your teeth or tying shoelaces are a great start because we all do them anyway. So brushing your teeth especially, hopefully we're all brushing our teeth a couple of times a day. When you do this, what your aim is to just pay attention. Pay attention to the senses. So what can you hear? What can you smell? What's the feeling like on your mouth? What's the feeling like on your teeth? What's the vibration of your brush like? And it's highly likely that you'll start and your mind within a few moments will have gone off in all directions. That's okay. It is not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that the mind is a busy place. So for the remaining 2025 workshops, here is a QR code that would just take you straight there, but it's just the page on the activemindfulness.org.uk website. You can also email me, Gemma at activemindfulness.org.uk. I could talk about mindfulness and movement. For me, it's running. Running is my sport. It hasn't been an easy journey, by the way. I'm not necessarily a natural runner. There are a lot of thoughts and feelings that got in the way for me of even joining in. But gradually over time, mindfulness has helped me really take part and really enjoy sport in a different way. And I would be happy to talk to you. So do email me. Okay, everyone, thank you. I hope you have enjoyed that. Do feel free to also book another taster if you'd like to come and ask more questions. You're more than welcome to. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.